When the people of Israel rejected their God and demanded a king, they didn't fully know what or who they were asking for. The men that ruled them would be heroic and hedonistic, brave and broken, faithful and flawed. The crown became both glory and grief. But every flawed king, every failed reign was a shadow, a whisper of the only king who wouldn't just rule them, he'd redeem them.
All right, good morning again, everybody. My name is Steve Musto. I'm one of the pastors here. Glad that you are here with us today. We are in the midst of this series, just started last week, this series on the kings of Israel and Judah. Why Israel and Judah? Well, as we go along in the series, we're going to find out what happened there. But man, if you missed the message last week, Tyler did a phenomenal job introducing us to how we got here. Because the Israelite people were not supposed to have a king, like an earthly king. God was their king. And Tyler set that up wonderfully last week. Now, the truth of the matter is that when it came to the people of Israel, the reason they wanted a king was one nation. And the nation was Philistia, the Philistines. They cried out to God because the Philistines were so awful to them and were making their lives miserable at every opportunity. And so the people called out to God and said, "Send us a king who can rescue us." God was supposed to be their king. They rejected him. So he sent them judges to remind them of who he was. They rejected the judges. So he sent them King Saul. He gave him everything he needed to be successful, but Saul turned inward. He turned to what benefited him the most. He let his heart towards God grow cold. And as a result, he lost the power and the strength of God behind him. He had some early victories against the Philistines, but once again, God withdrew his hand and would not march out and fight for the Israelite people. So 1 Samuel chapter 17 is where we are. And as we go here, just want to let you know that this story is, I would say it's probably the most famous story in the Bible. I know there are a lot of people who know that Jesus died on the cross, but they can't tell you the details of that or what kind of happened around it. But there are a lot of people who've never cracked a Bible. They could tell you most of the details of the story of David and Goliath. It transcends literature. It transcends art. I titled the message today, David's Best Day. Anybody want to guess next week when we talk about David, what we're going to call it? Yes, David's worst day. But today is his best day. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 1. The Philistines gathered their forces for war at Socoh in Judah, and they camped between Socoh and Azekah in Ephes Damim. Everybody know where that is? We good? Yeah, I don't either. Saul and the men of Israel gathered, and they camped in the valley of Elah, and then they lined up in battle formation to face the Philistines. Philistines are standing on one hill. The Israelites standing on another hill with a ravine between them. Okay, you can go to the valley of Elah today. It is still there. There are a number of hills that dot it. We don't know exactly which one the Israelites are on, the Philistines are on. There still is a ravine that runs in the middle of it. You can go pick up a stone if you'd like to. And then at night, the Israeli Archaeological Society will come and dump more stones there for the tourists to pick up. And that's just kind of part of the deal. Verse 3, the Philistines were standing on one hill, Israelites standing on another hill, ravine between them, and a champion named Goliath from Gath came out of the Philistine camp. Gath. When you say it, you have to say it like that. Nothing good, you see, comes out of Gath. Gath is one of the 5 cities that is left standing when the people of Israel, at the end of Joshua, have forced the people out of the land. There's 5 cities that are left standing. They're very, very powerful. They're very strong. And God leaves them there purposefully as a test for the Israelites. as a way of not letting their spiritual muscles atrophy. One of those cities is Gath. And that's where Goliath is from. Goliath was 9 feet, 9 inches tall. Talk about it in a minute. He wore a bronze helmet, bronze scale armor that weighed 125 pounds. There was bronze armor on his shins. Bronze javelin was slung between his shoulders. His spear shaft was like a weaver's beam. In other words, you needed 2 hands to get your hands around it. The iron point of his spear weighed 15 pounds. And in addition, a shield bearer was walking in front of him. Okay, 9 feet, 9 inches tall. This Bible's taking liberties, right? Is it even possible? Actually, it is. There have been numerous accounts throughout history of people who breached 9 feet and maybe even 10 feet. Medically, we understand this today better than they did. They just knew them as giants. But today we actually call it gigantism. This is a condition. It has something to do with the pituitary gland that does not shut off when the person reaches a certain age. All of our growth hormones shut off. They're supposed to. But when you have gigantism, that doesn't happen. And so they just continue to grow. They grow through their whole lives. The tallest verified person, that is, someone went to great lengths to make sure this person was really that tall, was Robert Wadlow. He's from the United States. He died in 1940, and he was 9 feet tall. And so we get the sense that this is not in any way impossible. Those people with gigantism, they have a hard life. It wears on your bones. It wears on your joints. Okay, so there are people like Shaquille O'Neal. They're just tall. But then there are other people who actually have this condition called gigantism. Let's get an idea. How tall is 9'9"? Well, it's a good thing we've got Goliath here. So, there you go. This is 9'9" right here. He's a tall dude. I would imagine that if you're going out to do anything, fight a battle, play basketball, get your mail, this would be a little intimidating, wouldn't it? And this is exactly what the people of Israel are up against. We understand, because we understand science and medicine a little bit more, that this thing called gigantism is hereditary, and that it can be passed. It's not always passed, but it can be passed. Just like dwarfism, the opposite, can be passed, so can gigantism. So it's not unusual to find little pockets of folks who have gigantism. If we fast forward in the Bible to 2 Samuel, and we go to 2 Samuel, I believe it's 21, we're going to find David fighting against people from Gath. Again, some of them are relatives of Goliath, and they also have gigantism. They're just really, really tall people. Verse 8, he stood and shouted to the Israelite battle formations, "Why do you come out to line up in battle formation? Am I not a Philistine? Are you not servants of Saul? Choose one of your men and have him come down against me. If he wins in a fight against me and kills me, we'll be your servants. But if I win against him and kill him, then you will be our servants and serve us." And then the Philistines said, "I defy the ranks of Israel today. Send me a man so we can fight each other." When Saul and all Israel heard these words from the Philistine, they lost their courage and they were terrified. It's hard to blame them, isn't it? It's a pretty imposing presence. War, then and now, is expensive. It's expensive in every possible way. It expends not only material and food and feeding an army and everything else, but you're going to lose a lot of equipment. You're going to lose those horses. You're going to lose certainly people. And so it's very expensive. So whenever possible, what armies would do is they would choose their best fighter. And they would choose one fighter to go out and fight the best fighter from the other army. And then whoever won, that was it. That's the army that won. And this sounds odd to us. It's like going to the NBA championship and saying, you know what, we're not even going to play the game. We're just going to let you and you play one game of horse to decide who is the champion. It seems strange, but it was practical. It was economical. And that is what he is calling for here. Now, we have a sense, well, why wouldn't Israelites just take him up on this? Why wouldn't they say, yeah, okay, we'll send you our best guy? But these are not evenly matched forces. Let's rewind the tape a little bit to 1 Samuel 13, verse 19. No blacksmith could be found in all the land of Israel because the Philistines had said, well, otherwise the Hebrews will make swords or spears. So all the Israelites went to the Philistines to sharpen their plows and mattocks and axes and sickles. The price was 2/3 of a shekel for plows and mattocks, 1/3 of a shekel for pitchforks and axes, one for putting a point on a cattle prod. So on the day of battle, this is a different battle it's describing, but very close in time, not a sword or spear could be found in the hand of any of the troops who were with Saul and Jonathan. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had weapons. All right, so the Philistines don't want you to make weapons, so they kill or kidnap all the blacksmiths. And then they start charging these exorbitant rates to do what? This is all farming equipment. So when the army gets called, like, hey guys, the Philistines are attacking, it's like Farmer Bob comes out with a pitchfork. That's what's going on. It's like, this is pretty sharp. I guess I'll go to war with this. So, people are coming out of their houses. One guy like rips a tree branch off, like, hey guys, I got a club. Hey, all right. You want to be our unit commander? That's great. They have nothing. These are not fighting people. They don't know what they're doing. The Philistines have a whole army. Who in the world are they going to send out? We're used to hearing about this narrative and describing it as David and Goliath. And we like that narrative because, well, look at the guy. He's really tall. And David, the average height for a man is like 5'6". David's probably around there, 5'6", maybe 5'7". And so we like the idea of this disparity between really small and really tall. Height plays some part in this narrative, but it's not the part that we think it is. Because this is actually not about the height of David. It's actually about something else. 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 23. They ran and got him from there. When he stood among the people, he stood a head taller than anyone else. Who's this talking about? Saul. This is King Saul. So at 5'6", 5'7", a head taller, what is this guy, 6'3", 6'4"? 6'4", in those days, you'd be rare that you would ever see somebody that tall. Who's 6'4". So I'm about 6 feet in these shoes. And so, I don't know, was he here? This is how tall Saul is. Not super impressive by our standards, but very impressive in those days. What is the author trying to say here? Saul, first of all, is the king. Goliath calls him out in verse 8 and says, aren't you servants of Saul? Isn't that who you are? Isn't that who you're fighting for? Saul? Calls him out by name. And Saul, forget the fact that he's the king for just a moment. Forget that he's the one with all the armor and all of the weaponry. Set that aside. Just via height, he's the tallest one. This is basic basketball 101. They have a center. You want your tallest guy to be the center. I think that's still the way they play the game. He should be out there. And he's not. He's paralyzed with fear, verse 11. The author is showing us that Saul no longer measures up in any possible sense of the phrase. Verse 12. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite from Bethlehem. Ephrathite just means he's from Bethlehem. From Bethlehem of Judah, named Jesse. Jesse had 8 sons. During Saul's reign, was already an old man. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. Their names were Eliab, the firstborn, Abinadab the next, Shammah the third, and David was the youngest. The 3 oldest had followed Saul, but David kept going back and forth from Saul to tend his father's flock in Bethlehem. Wait. What do you mean going back and forth? So what nobody knows, what David and his family knows, is that David has been anointed the king of Israel in secret. Nobody can know, so don't nobody say anything to Saul. Saul will try to kill David when he finds out, but he doesn't know that yet. But he's hired David, unbeknownst to him, almost like it was orchestrated. He has hired David to be the court musician. And so David will go and play music for him. He's like the house band for Saul. And then he goes home and he does what he needs to do for his dad. So he already is aware of Saul, and Saul's aware of him. Verse 16, every morning and evening for 40 days. This is important. 40 days is important. It's in the Bible for a reason. Philistine came forward and took his stand. One day Jesse had told his son David, take this half bushel of roasted grain along with these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Also take these 10 portions of cheese to the field commander. Check on the well-being of your brothers. Bring a confirmation from them, meaning of both their safety and that what I'm laying out for the war effort is going to be paid back to me because we're going to beat them. The family, the army is so bad off that the families are providing food for the army. You got to send your son like rations to eat. That's how bad things are. There was Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. So David got up early in the morning. He left the flock with someone to keep it. He loaded up and set out as Jesse had charged him. He arrived at the perimeter of the camp as the army was marching out to its battle formation, shouting their battle cry. 40 days. What do we know about the Bible in 40 days? Well, if we go back to Genesis, 40 days is the amount of rain that fell on Noah and the ark. What is that a time of? Testing, a time of judgment. 40 days is the amount of time that Moses went without food before God gave him the law. A trial. Going through testing before receiving the law from God. 40 days, the amount of time that Jesus fasted, a time of testing in the wilderness by the evil one. Well, the author is being very clear here what he wants us to see. This is not by chance. God is in this. God is doing something here. Notice as well that how David shows up. He brings a little bit of dough. He brings the cheese. That's what he's doing. He just shows up bringing cheese, bringing dough. He's tomato sauce short of being the pizza delivery guy. And he just shows up to the battle like this. Everything else that happens, this is not that David woke up that morning and God said, are you ready for the biggest day of your life? People are going to talk about this for as long as there is an earth. He just wakes up and brings the cheese. Verse 21. Israel and the Philistines lined up in battle formation, facing each other. David left his supplies to the care of the quartermaster and ran to the battle line. When he arrived, he asked his brothers how they were. And while he was speaking with them, suddenly the champion named Goliath, the Philistine from Gath, came forward from the Philistine battle line, shouted his usual words, which David heard. All the Israelite men saw Goliath. They retreated from him, terrified. And previously, an Israelite man had declared, do you see this man who keeps coming out? He comes to defy Israel. The king will make the man who kills him very rich, will give him his daughter. The king will also make the family of that man's father exempt from paying taxes in Israel. And David spoke to the men who were standing with him. What will be done for the man who kills that Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Just who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? The troops told him about the offer, concluding, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. I don't think David is asking this question because he's interested in a tax break. And I don't think he's interested in marrying the king's daughter, because later on he's going to say, no, I don't deserve that. I think what is shocking to him is, wait, why do you need incentive? I don't get it. What do you mean there's a prize? Did you not see what's going on here? David is offended. He's not offended for himself. He's not offended for his country. He's not like patriotic. He's not offended even for his king. He's offended for Yahweh. What David understands, what everybody in this day and age understands, is that war doesn't happen between armies. It's not about whose army is better. Wars happen between gods. It's about whose God is stronger. And the Israelites have been losing consistently. And this is troublesome. And David hears this and he says, wait a second. How is Yahweh, why do you believe that Yahweh's not up to this challenge? Has this been the problem? Let's skip down to verse 31. What David said was overheard, reported to Saul. So he had David brought to him, and David said to Saul, don't let anyone be discouraged by him. Your servant will go and fight this Philistine. But Saul replied, you can't go fight this Philistine. You're just a youth. He's been a warrior since he was young. And David answered Saul. Notice, by the way, that Saul doesn't point out the height thing. He's a little sensitive about that. Wouldn't you be? If you were the tallest one? He doesn't say it because you're little and he's really, really tall. See, because the tallest guy should march out and do something about that. Never says that. Saul replied, you can't go fight this Philistine. You're a youth. He's been a warrior since he was young. See, the problem is Goliath's really good at this. You're not. David answered Saul, your servant has been tending his father's sheep. Whenever a lion or a bear came and carried off a lamb from the flock, I went after it, I struck it down, and I rescued the lamb from its mouth. If it reared up against me, I'd grab it by its fur, I would strike it down, and I would kill it. Your servant has killed lions and bears. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And then David said, Yahweh who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the Hebrew says, the paw of the Philistine. If this is a fight between David and Goliath, that's what we made it out to be, then David loses every time. If this is a fight between Israel and the Philistines, Israel loses because they have. They're unmatched. But if this is a fight against Yahweh and, doesn't matter, fill in the blank, Yahweh's going to win. Doesn't matter. You take all of your champions, put them up against him. Take all of your armies. Yahweh versus everybody. It doesn't matter. Yahweh wins. Always. Every single time. And David sees this so clearly. Wait a second. You guys are concerned about this? So Saul said to David, go and may Yahweh be with you. And then Saul had his own military clothes put on David. He put a bronze helmet on David's head and had him put on armor. David strapped his sword on over the military clothes. He tried to walk, but he was not used to them. I can't walk in these, David said to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off. And instead, he took his staff in his hand and he chose 5 smooth stones from the wadi and put them in his pouch. That's the little stream that runs through that valley. In the shepherd's bag. And then with a sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. To Saul, the only way you fight is with weapons. David, it doesn't matter. I grew up hearing this story a lot in Sunday school. It's a great story, one of my favorite stories. And I grew up thinking about smooth stones like this. Smooth stones, and I would, sometimes they'd pass them out in Sunday school. I'd be like, wow, and I look at this and I think to myself, now as an adult, this would cause an awfully big egg on your head, wouldn't it? You get one of those like, ow, kind of things. We're not talking about a stone like this. The Bedouin shepherds today still use slingshots. And this is a shepherd's sling right here. The stones that they would use in this were about the size of a baseball, maybe like a tennis ball. They would look for the smoothest stone possible, like the size of your fist maybe. It would go in just like this. We have a picture of a Bedouin. This was taken many years ago, but this is exactly what they still look like and what they do. Slinging a stone. This is physics. That's what this is. The folks who do this, who are really, really good at this, there are different ways to do it. There's like a forehand thing on the side. There's a backhand one, and that causes the stone to rise and go like this. There's the over the head. I think that might be what he's doing. There's like the cross body thing. There's all different ways that they have different throws for different environments. The people who do this, the slingers is what they're called, they are pretty accurate to about 200 yards. That's 2 football fields. So they can hit a decent-sized object at 200 yards. At 100 yards, they can knock cans off a fence all day long and not miss. That's the length of a football field, just one after the other, after the other, after the other. They're really, really good at this. 50 yards away, you are dead. Have you ever seen a baseball player try to duck out of the way of a 100-mile-an-hour fastball? That's just 100 miles an hour. These go faster than that. It's physics. David is used to this kind of combat, although he's never used it on a human before. But he practices a lot. There's not a whole lot else to do in the fields. Verse 41, the Philistine came closer and closer to David with the shield bearer in front of him, which is smart defensive position. When the Philistine looked and he saw David, he despised him because he was just a youth, he was healthy, and he was handsome. Okay, so a couple of things. Why healthy? Why is that a big deal? Because Goliath is not healthy. Goliath has gigantism. Goliath has been in pain most of his life. He's had a difficult time. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come against me with sticks?" And then he cursed David by his gods. Why did he curse him by his gods? Because this is a battle between gods. He's invoking the name of his gods to come and finish off this one that he hates. "Come here," the Philistine called to David. "I'll give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with a sword and a spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of Yahweh of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel. You have defied him." Now, you think you're making Saul mad. You think this is about you and an army? You're in trouble now. "Today Yahweh will hand you over to me. Today I will strike you down. I will remove your head, and I'll give the corpses of the entire Philistine camp. You are going to give my body to the birds of the sky. The whole camp to the birds of the sky and the wild creatures of the earth. Then all the world will know that I'm the greatest slinger of all time? That I'm a wonderful shepherd? That I'm the real king of Israel? No, none of that. That Israel has a God. And this whole assembly will know that it's not by a sword or by a spear that Yahweh saves, for the battle is Yahweh's, and he will hand you over to us." If anybody ever asks you, what is the story about David and Goliath about? Is it about height? No, it's about verse 47. Verse 47 is the entire text. Yahweh's salvation is not by sword or by spear or intercontinental ballistic missile or whatever it is that's fearsome in our day. because the battle already belongs to him. The Israelites had few weapons. They had no champion to match Goliath. They had no trained army. David's confidence is not in himself. It is not in his abilities. It is not in his youth or the fact that he seems to be good looking. It's not in any of these things. It's not even who God has said he is. Hey, you're the next one. You're next up. After Saul's gone, you're it. You're going to be the king. He's not in that. His confidence is in the one he's fighting for. And so verse 48, when the Philistines started forward to attack him, David ran quickly to the battle line to meet the Philistines. So he's on the run. David put his hand in the bag. He took out a stone. He slung it, hit the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. What happened here? It caved in his skull. That's what it did. Didn't kill him instantly, but it got real close. That's a big skull, you guys. That's a thick skull. That's like a baseball-sized rock, though, is hitting it. David defeated the Philistine. The writer of Samuel wants us to know, verse 50. David defeated the Philistine with a sling and a stone. David overpowered the Philistine and killed him without having a sword. Oh, who has a sword again? Saul. David ran and stood over him, and he grabbed the Philistine's sword. He pulled it from its sheath, and he used it to kill him, and then he cut off his head. And when the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they fled. The men of Israel and Judah rallied, shouted their battle cry, chased the Philistines to the entrance to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. Philistine bodies were strewn all along the Sharaim road to Gath, and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from the pursuit of the Philistines, they plundered their camps. David took Goliath's head and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put Goliath's weapons in his own tent. There's a whole other story behind that, but we don't have time. We've excavated Ekron, by the way. There's all kinds of Philistine armor there that we've found. Unlike Saul, David proves to be a king who embraces Yahweh's authority enthusiastically. David understands that he's not plan A. Plan A is God is king. Alone. Plan B is the judges get sent in. Plan C, Saul, he drops the ball. David is just bringing cheese when he shows up. Simple trust in God and reliance on God are all that it takes for David. It's only because God is who he is that David can do what he does. And that's the lesson for our lives. Whatever you do, let God's glory be the reason you do it. Whatever you do, let the glory of God be the reason you do it. See, what happens to us is that we cheat on this. We do things. We use our own gifts and abilities. We use our own resources. We do what we want to do for our own purposes, and then we bring God into it later. Well, praise God that everything worked out the way it was supposed to work out. It must have been God all along. Maybe. Maybe God is just gracious and kind, and you fell backwards into this thing. David showed up on the scene being obedient, but we have no indication that God wanted him to do this thing on that day until he is confronted with this opportunity. And he recognizes, hey, I have the resources to do something about this. All of us have the same opportunity in our own lives. All we need to do is to be ready when the opportunity from God presents itself, to be willing, to be ready, and to be courageous. When we talk about this story, we mislabel it. Not only is the David and Goliath story, but we make it about something it's not. We make it about something like facing our own giants, and because, David knocked down a giant. He was little. Doesn't matter. We can face anything that God throws our way. There's some truth in that. That's not the moral of the story. This is not about David. It's not about Goliath. It's not about the Philistines. It's not about Israel. It's about Yahweh. It's about who God is. When we say that we serve God or that we love God or that we follow God or something like that, we are following the God who did this. We're not following some later version of God who was really good back then but now is kind of old and tired. We're not following a God who's like, well, I mean, I gave it my best shot, but I don't know about these people anymore. I'm just going to stand back and let things happen the way they're going to happen. That's not a God we're following. We're following this same Yahweh. When we think of the kings of Israel, David is the preeminent example among them. He's the one that's most well known. It's not a surprise that despite his faults and his failures, that David is the prototype king. And it's also not a surprise then that part of his line comes the king who reigns even now and will reign forever. It's King Jesus. We're going to celebrate communion together. Communion is a time when those of us who are followers of Jesus remember God's victory. Certainly his victory over invading armies and that kind of thing in the Bible, but more than that. It's his victory over sin. It's what all of it was leading up to. God sent his son, Jesus, a relative of David, to die on the cross for us, to pay the penalty for us so that we could have access to God, so we could be in right relationship with God. And that is where we can be if we put our faith and trust there. So if you're a follower of Christ and you would like to take communion with us, please do that. As the communion elements come by, grab the bread and the cup and just hold on to them for a moment. We'll take them all together in just a moment. If you're not yet a follower of Christ, would you just let the elements pass you by? This is a time for those of us who celebrate what Jesus has done in our life, to have a time of intimacy and reflection with him. And parents, you know your kids. You know where they are with the Lord. It's up to you to determine whether they understand what they're doing here or not. If you need gluten-free, in just a moment you can slip back to the back. There's a little table in the back with gluten-free elements as well. So if those who are passing would come forward while I pray, let's pray together. God, thank you for this reminder today of who you are and of what you've done. What you've done through those who had the courage, the tenacity, the willingness to want your glory more than they want anything else. Make us like them. But God, also what you've done through your son, Jesus. And thank you for his life and his death and his resurrection. We celebrate it together now. We pray all this in the name of Jesus, and all God's people said, amen.